This one is different. Like the Yom Kippur War 50 years ago, where Egypt and Syria almost overran Egypt, like 9/11, only far worse, like Iraq's invasion of Kuwait, this is one of the big ones we only see once every decade or 2 decades in the Middle East that really can change things and puts countries in existential threat. Israel is an existential threat, not just from the people, civilians killed 10 times proportionally what we lost from terror on 9/11. It was the overrunning of a whole forward Israeli army division by 5,000 roughly Hamas highly trained and prepared soldiers that presents the threat to Israel. It can't deal permanently with that threat while also having threats on its northern border from Hezbollah and from Iran across the Gulf. So Israel has to go in and take out Hamas. That's the order it's given the military to dismantle Hamas. Very similar to the mission that when Tony Blinken and Lloyd Austin were in the Obama administration, they were given to take out the Islamic State. And in both cases, that can really generate civilian casualties. And in the case of this conflict, there's a risk that Lebanese Hezbollah out of Lebanon could intervene or Iran directly, which is one reason why President Biden is so strong and why he sent 2 aircraft carriers to deter other countries from piling on as Israel is focused on Gaza.
Well, what happens in the next couple of days here, and to the extent that this ground invasion occurs, Mr. Ambassador, will tell us a lot, I suspect, about the potential for this to escalate. This is not going to be easy, realizing we have a very well-trained military and a very capable one in Israel. I think to the Secretary's point, this is going to require a good deal of discipline. How concerned are you about the way Israel will conduct this invasion in an area that's teeming with civilians?
Well, look, I have to be really blunt here. When countries are fighting existential battles, they will adhere to the law of war, but that neither requires nor will they make it their top priority to spare civilians. That's the problem with the admonitions they've been getting from the Biden administration. If you're going to take, as Tony Blinken said, every possible precaution to avoid attacking civilians or hurting civilians, you don't invade an area where civilians are being held by the tens of thousands as essentially human shields by Hamas. Hamas could support the evacuation of people. It could place its troops and its installations not inside buildings that people are in, but it does. That's the problem for Israel. It's going to be trying to achieve a military victory quickly. It can't keep 5% of the population under arms indefinitely with minimum Israeli casualties, while also minimizing the civilian losses, which is why the Israeli Minister of Defense told the citizens of Gaza to move south about 10 miles across what we call the Wadi or Gaza River.
Mm-hmm. How difficult of a job does Israel have here? This is obviously an entrenched enemy with a network of tunnels beneath Gaza. There are no uniforms that they'll be able to see when they move into the streets of Gaza. Mr. Ambassador, you think about this as a combination potentially of Stalingrad and Iwo Jima with what they're facing.
This is going to be very tough. I'm a former infantry officer. Attacking into a city is difficult, even if you have overwhelming numerical superiority, which Israel does have, and even if you have air power, armor, and other things that the other side does not have. It often comes down to soldier versus soldier fighting your way from room to room, as we did in Fallujah in 2004 in Iraq. We lost 100 Marines and Army fighters killed and several hundred wounded. But Israel can do this. It is determined to do this. It is determined to take the high casualties. The problem is, as we saw in the attack last Saturday, Hamas has thousands of highly trained fighters who surprised the Israeli army and overran the front line Israeli positions. So Israel will have to be fairly careful. But this is another reason why they're bombing to such an extraordinary degree, far more than they ever have done in Gaza, as a preparatory step to sending their troops in. They want to discombobulate Hamas's defenses as much as possible. We'll see when they do go in, and I'm sure they will, whether they're successful or not.